What can be said about the definition of the word Enigma? Only that it's something difficult to describe, difficult to explain, and that it has a complicated significance, especially as we move to certain topics. On this special Pride Month episode, I am joined by a fellow service member, born up in Southern Carolina and raised Southern Baptist. We talk about identity and tackling with accepting yourself, being accepted by your family, and how it affects all members of the LGBTQ+ community. After military service, a marriage, and subsequent divorce, she recounts her experience of serving during the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and the acceptance of trans service members, and gives insight on her experience so far after coming out as trans in 2020. We explore her perspective with current changes in 2025, and answer what it means to be privileged, and use that as a way to speak out in support of other communities. As we also learn about other aspects of her life as a voice actress in an audio drama, and her personal project to provide a safe space online, with hopes to expand its members and bring more inclusion. This is Jacqueline Burns. So, welcome back to another episode of the ESL sessions on the segment of Enigma. And today on this episode in June, I have a very unique and a very special individual because one, they were also a service member. Two, I met them long before their transition, but it's a beautiful episode, and I want to say that because you don't really get to know people as well as you think you do, but in the situation that we were, it's a very unique experience. But I'll let her speak on that in a little bit. But before we get started, I'll go ahead and let her introduce herself, give us a little bit of just general background, and then we'll get started on getting to know her. So whenever you're ready.
Well, my name is Jacqueline Burns, the Vampire Queen Jacqueline, as it were. I'm an artist, a voice director, as well as a voice actor. As Jonathan mentioned, I am a service member. Me and him both served in the Navy, and we actually met that way, Division 031. I'm not really sure what else to add to that, but we'll get into it.
No, yeah, we'll get into it. So now, full disclosure for both for the listeners, but also for yourself. I guess I will ask for your permission. Can I touch on that specific point of where we met? Very specific at 031.
Oh yeah, you can touch on that just fine. That's not a problem. The only things I would mention, just based on the situation, is still using she/her pronouns, but beyond that, it's just there's nothing really of concern there.
There you go. Perfect.
After all, I was the biggest asshole in the entire division.
But that's the thing about it. It's just like it's touching on certain points and specifics where it's just like you kind of think about it and like, man, it's like I don't remember like that. Like I remember like a couple, like there was definitely a couple arguments here and there and things, but it was like I don't remember like that. But it goes to show in a lot of ways like how you see people and the light that people are in when you're interacting with them versus I guess kind of like a kind of hindsight after the fact, like, no, I still don't remember that. So it's just me. But touching on it real quick. So I met you as Sailor Burns in our all-male division in 2013 when we went to boot camp. And like I said, we'll touch on that a little bit more specific a little bit later. But I want to bring that to preface because we're in June. It's June. It's what do you call it? It's Pride Month. And I didn't know this until about some years back. I want to say about 5 years back, but you can correct me when you decided to make well, I guess when you went through with your transition to being, I don't know how else to explain it, to be able to recognize yourself as you have always seen yourself in the current state that you are. But can you touch on that a little bit?
Well, I can. So 2020, I had known for a couple of years by that point that I was trans. It was actually part of the reason I got out of the Navy in 2018 was that I basically said, look, Trump's putting a trans care ban back into place. I don't feel comfortable around a lot of the sailors because, it's very conservative in the military, and especially being in the South, and even when I was in Minnesota. And you'd think Minnesota would be better because, that's a far more open and understanding place. But even there, I saw a lot of folks who, when the trans care stuff came into effect, effectively as a late term put out by Obama. And then when it was shuttered out, how much celebration there was, as well as how much of a jingoistic warmongering perspective so many had. I I just couldn't stand it. So all that tied together, and then realizing I was trans, and I couldn't continue to try to pretend to be a guy. I couldn't pretend to exist in that space. It still took a couple of years for me to start transitioning. It took me having to hand my wedding ring over to my wife, or my ex-wife now, but my wife at the time, and saying, "Hey, I can't do this anymore. I need you to go," because she was not supportive of me, even though I tried talking with her about it. Um, I met someone. We had been together for a little bit. I explained to her how I was feeling, and she supported me. We're no longer together. She and I didn't really get on. Turns out she's straight, and the more I transitioned, the more I saw myself in the mirror, the less she was attracted to me. Unfortunate as to say. So that didn't end. That ended far worse than my marriage did. Um, but we she and I broke up in a messy way, but it's been a long journey of discovery in a lot of different ways.
No, I can imagine. Like I said, it's been about 5 years since I kind of had it. Like I saw, like I said, we didn't really talk too much, obviously, and but either way, in the whole way that the military has united us in a lot of ways, I still keep tabs on a lot of the people that we were in boot camp with, and that we all met around the block around that same time when we all first joined. So it's when I saw that first message, like, I'm gonna be honest with you, when you posted your first message, I'm like, it doesn't make sense to me, but I'm happy. I'm happy, and I'm joyful to know that one of my, at the time, as without disrespect, at that time, one of my fellow brothers was learning to accept themselves, and two was like, I'm not losing a brother, I'm getting a sister, I'm getting still another person that served their country with pride and with respect to be able to defend the people, and has now that liberty and still continues to have that liberty to be able to express themselves openly as they can. Granted, the whole shift in narrative and the whole shift in politics has made it a lot difficult for anybody outside of the bell curve, we'll put it like that, to be able to be open about anything. So knowing that I have other people in other sections of the world and in other sections of the country that are still that are openly there with us, supporting both the what do you call it, the dismantling of these ridiculous changes, these regimental changes, it makes it less daunting to understand that what do you call it, we're all struggling in our own way, and we're all relating to be able to try to make that change open for everybody. So yeah.
And we're all just kind of trying to find a place to fight together against the worst oppressive forces. Now, obviously, once the worst of it's gone, then they'll still go back to a little bit of infighting and debate. But that's where it just comes down to everybody need to take the time to listen and learn.
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's one thing that's always been taken, that I've taken very specific to the whole point. So you may not know, but also, like, I grew up around my own personal gay community as well. And the same thing in Mexican culture, it's very misogynistic and very, very direct, to the point where it's just like, if you even mention that you have thoughts or feelings about wanting to be with another man, wanting to be with another girl, if you're a girl, it's like, it's looked at, it's like, what the hell is this? What's this BS? And we'll touch on that a little bit, especially as we go and talk a little bit about where you grew up with, and then how your life was growing up. But like I said, I grew up with two gay uncles, and with those two gay uncles being one very accepted, but still went through that trauma of the misogynistic and that very, very difficult life as a Mexican man in the early 90s. And then the other one kind of basically ignored, never accepted, but ignored, but understood that he was gay. And it literally took them about 10, 15 years back for our families to basically finally accept the fact. It's like, hey, they're not going to change. This is a lifetime thing, and it's either we lose them forever or we accept how they are. And it kind of ended up getting to that resolution. They were accepted. And like I said, I love my uncles. I grew up with them, did did theater with one of them. One of them sponsored me through all of my chambelán, all of my chamberlains when I was doing like the debutantes and the sweet 16s, the sweet 15s. So it's like I learned a lot of my manhood from two gay men. So it's like, honestly, to say is like I learned to be more of a man from two gay men than I learned from any other straight dude out there, even including my father. So it says a lot. It really says a lot about how we really are trying to push this out, this narrative, without accepting what the contributions are. But enough of my ranting on that. Let's go back to get to know you. So, Jacqueline Burns, where did you grow up? How was that for you from I guess from when you can remember up until about elementary school or going into middle school? How was that for you?
It was interesting. So I'm from Anderson, South Carolina, and if you haven't heard of it, it's not a surprise. If you had heard of it, the only reason you really would have heard of it is because that's the same city and state, same hometown that Chadwick Boseman is from. So that's really probably our only decent claim to fame. We've got a couple other folks, but it's not it's not a very well known town. Um, but being born and raised there, I was born and raised Southern Baptist. Grew up doing a lot of that stuff that you would expect from that. Going to church every Sunday. Growing up, elementary school, middle school. Not really middle school as much because middle school wound up being in a different area. I wound up moving about roughly every 4 years. My father served in the army. He got out before I was born, but the lifestyle of constant moving has kind of stuck with the family quite well, actually. So being raised, going to elementary school, being raised in a Southern Baptist church, I I didn't really I don't have too many memories of experiencing anything that kind of jumped out. Um, Definitely the big thing that does jump out is just undiagnosed autism, which still not diagnosed. It's more of a it seems to fit, but no proper diagnosis makes it kind of hard. And difficulties that I had in school, elementary, middle, high school, I always had difficulty understanding, okay, why am I needing to do extra work? Why am I needing to do homework and all this other stuff when clearly I know the stuff, I'm learning it. What's the issue here? Um, and as far as anything else related to my gender and sexuality, when I was in elementary school up until I was about 12 years old, I was at times wearing women's clothing, but I always felt ashamed of it. I always felt like I needed to hide that I was doing things like that because that was the culture I grew up in, being raised Southern Baptist, being raised in a very conservative family. And my parents now uh, are far more understanding and accepting. And they tried to be understanding and accepting then, but it was you if you don't know about things, if you're not really given the chance to know about things, it's a lot harder to give your child the support that they really need. But that being said, what was it? I think what last week? Last week on Tuesday? Yeah, last week on Tuesday. My mother actually came down from North Carolina and we went wedding dress shopping. Her and my father were willing to pay for my wedding dress, and it's an astounding thing of the differences between being raised in this understanding that anything queer is seen as vile or evil, love the sinner, hate the sin kind of mentality. Um, and then actually being able to embrace who you are, especially when you've had to push it down and perform as a male. I'll often say that the reason I'm such a good actor is because I've had 3 decades, well, not quite 3 decades, nearly 3 decades of being being trained to perform in a masculine role that did not fit me. Um, and there were always some things that were going to fit me, but you know, being made to exist in a space of short hair and you're a man and he him pronouns and um just the sheer amount of fucking vitriol and uh mistreatment that I remember middle elementary school, middle school, and high school from uh the a lot of the boys towards each other, especially if they were queer or even just the perception of queer, and using queerness as some sort of insult or derogatory thing.
Yeah. No, it's very true. And it's like a lot of things have changed within like the past, and I can honestly say about the past 20 years or so. Within that time frame, the narrative has shifted. The amount of people more openly, even within the past 10 years, we'll say it like that, because speaking about how you were saying with when we first joined in, when Obama revoked the "Don't Ask, Don't Tell" what do you call it narrative in 2015, we saw, like, at least on my ship,
Oh,
we saw a lot of people.
it wasn't even 2015. It was goodness me, I think it was 2012, 2013. Because I remember I was originally going to be in the Marines, got kicked out because of some stuff that doesn't matter. But basically, I remember I had originally had to sign a paper saying, "Hey, you won't do X, Y, and Z that's homosexual," and then later on, basically being told, "Yeah, that doesn't mean shit," um, because that was wild. That getting revoked and then just moving on from that. Sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt you.
no, you're good. Yeah, because like I said, so like, and that's what I'm speaking about is like that whole different, like the change of narratives. Like you saw a different aspect of like what the initial changes to like these old standing policies were, and how they really didn't get fully enacted until like a certain point. So it's like but
Oh
like
yeah,
how I remember it is like it was we were actually on cruise around 2013, about 2014, 2015, prepping up for our deployment, and I remember vividly because we were sitting there and we had just received the news off of the dang satellite, and satellite transmission to the TV, and we had remembered like, hey, there's a couple of dudes in here that they're queer, they're gay. It's like, but obviously same thing. Don't ask, don't tell. We never made the assumption, even though if one of them was flamboyant, or even if there was like a couple things, like we get it. Like it's a little bit of that locker room mentality when it comes
yeah,
to how we all interact, and especially in an all male crew. So
oh yeah,
when that happened and it got revoked is what really shifted a lot of the narrative, because one of the dudes that came out, he was like, I'm gonna say it like this, he was a very tall, very good looking individual, and it's in the same things like you would have never suspected, right? I think about
oh
a
yeah,
week or two after that, he came out to like a couple people. He's like, "Hey, look, guys, I'm gay." It's like, it is what it is. It's like, and it's like, cool, dude. We really don't care. Can you do your job? Can you do what we're doing? Awesome. That's what it is. But I bring that up because there was a couple instances where some people had actually had a general suspicion of what he was hiding, and not in a malicious way, just kind of like an accidental, hey, we either saw this on your phone, or hey, we saw you speaking in a certain way, or hey, you made this kind of like off comment, and it wasn't in line, it wasn't in what do you call it, in step with like what we would consider like the general male narrative. So
yeah.
it's interesting, it's really interesting, and like I said, going back to it 20 years back, that's a huge difference, that's a very huge difference. So, and I still remember those days too. But pushing it a little bit forward, so you're about 12, 13 years old, you're coming into your own understanding of there might be something, I don't want to say off there, you're definitely a little bit different than what the narrative is, but you still can't fully accept that. How did that lead into I guess your early relationships, especially going into puberty?
Oh goodness. So it was right before puberty that I stopped wearing the things that felt most comfortable to me. I had always been a little bit defensive, a little bit expect trouble from everything. It only got worse from there. Feeling like everyone was a threat, feeling like I did not belong anywhere, feeling like I always had this feeling in the back of my mind of do not let anyone know the things you've done. Do not let anyone know how you have felt in the past, because if anyone knew, it was very much the whole thing of, and I can understand better now that it was, don't let anyone find out you're a girl, but didn't really have the words for it, but very much don't let anyone find out because you will be shunned, you will be ridiculed, you will lose everything, because that's what I had been taught. And unfortunately that continued. Middle school, I had basically stopped, and I just kept being angrier and angrier. High school, so on and so forth. I actually wound up with juvenile charges, which is why it is I couldn't join the Marines, because I made the mistake of telling them, don't actually feel bad about it anymore. I've realized how much honor, courage, and commitment really do mean to me, as opposed to just words that you put above a door as a slogan. But I had some juvenile charges, and I had to go to counseling for it. Wound up moving back to South Carolina, and with the grandparents who are the reason I was raised Southern Baptist, the only grandparents that are really close to my parents, my mom's. Um, and even then, I just kept, especially going to church every Sunday. It almost felt, I don't know, it almost felt like I was safe and at home, but at the same time, it made it feel even more unsafe. Because yes, they were welcoming and accepting in the church I went to, but you, if you've ever heard a Southern Baptist sermon, especially, a white church, deep South, you already know exactly how much you're going to hear from the pulpit that just does not jive, especially when you know better that queer people aren't a problem, that people with melanin, just to put it mildly, people of color are not a problem. But you're hearing that from the pulpit, and for as safe as you feel, because, well, these people are like me, these people are my community, quote unquote, you you know that that's not really the truth. I wound up, separating myself from them when I went into the Navy. I moved to Minnesota and with my fiance at the time, um, who later became my first wife. And when I came back, I didn't go to church really anymore. Um, and being in Minnesota and being around folks who weren't like me helped a lot with that. And especially, I was in Minnesota when, hey, if you're trans, you are now allowed to openly serve in the military, came out, and it kind of stupefied me for a moment to just stop and think, is that me? Um, Still wasn't ready to accept it. That took end of 2017, beginning of 2018. And that's not a story that's I'm really going to be telling too much on, because that's pretty much just, hey, tried clothing because intrusive thought in the back of my mind, and it wound up feeling right. And then I went from there. But there was a lot of change of mentality going on from being in the military, and then coming back to the rural South and seeing here around a bunch of white people who have never really left this town, or if they have left this town, or if they're from another town, it's very similar mentality. And I just realized I didn't belong. Um, I'm no longer living in that town, but I'm not living in a much better area. It's even further out in the woods, and a lot less, um, I guess, enlightenment being an appropriate word. And it's really unfortunate, because I'll be honest, I don't want to be around these sorts of people, because they're definitely the sorts that you look at and go, if I'm caught outside at night, there's a chance that I might be a tree decoration by morning.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, it sounds like a really big shift, especially like you said, mainly because of the region that you're in actively, where you grew up, and then just kind of like those values, those generalized values of being in, what do you call it, being born in the southern United States, being raised Baptist, but also that kind of unity between that very hypocritical, family is unity.
Oh, yeah.
Unity means the strength, and the strength means that you're not going to be going against anybody, much less your community, because we're the ones that accept you. And like I said, it's that very hypocritical thing where it's just like, yes, but will you truly accept me if I show you who I really am? Is that thing that kind of jumped out at me. But what you touched on about your parents, especially recently, how you were talking about what do you call it, looking for wedding dresses, and your mom actually going over to be able to go help you choose dresses and stuff. I remember seeing it. I'm like, man, it's like, look at these things that are happening for my friend. Look at these things that are happening for someone within the community, to be able to be like this, and not have any fear of, well, I want to say not have fear, have less of a fear to be able to be targeted or things like that, you know? But I
Yeah.
see it, and it's like that's a good thing that your parents are openly a little bit more supportive. Like, have you had any clashes with them though? Speaking on that, with them in the, not want to say recently, but how when you first started coming out, or when you were starting to have doubts of what do you call it? Maybe you're not male, maybe you are, or you are a woman, maybe you are trans.
So there weren't really any clashes per se, but there was a lot of not understanding. And even now, my parents do have a harder time understanding. My mother has said many times that she carried me for 9 months. It was God 26, 27 years that they knew me as their son. And then, it's only been roughly 5 years, actually over 5 years now, where I have been openly living as myself. And they have a hard time with that because they haven't, as my mother has put a lot of times, she is still kind of coping with it. She is still working through the emotions of it. And I can appreciate that, but I also have a hard time understanding it because for me it's as simple as someone has taken off the mask, taken off the costume, taken off everything that they are using to protect themselves. The armor of masculinity, the armor, or in the case of trans men, the armor of femininity, or in the case of NBs, the armor of gender, as we know it. They're taking off that armor that's meant to protect them from a world that cannot understand them and showing their true self. And so I can understand, making that shift, making that switch, especially, my parents are in their 50s. They're about to turn 60 this year. So it's not easy. But I have never really understood why it has taken them so long because for me it's simple. For me it's as easy as to understand as okay, that's not your name anymore. Those aren't your pronouns. Correct me if I fuck it up. I will do my best to correct myself. But recently, or when my mother was down, I actually met with my aunt because I went to see my mother before she left, and my aunt came over, and it turns out one of my cousins is non-binary, or at least uses they them pronouns. I'm not gonna say that they're non-binary, but they at least use they them pronouns. But all the while that she's telling me this, she's saying, "Oh, he uses they them pronouns now," and I'm just sitting here going, "Okay, no, they use they them pronouns." You know, it's it's a clash of folks who want to take time to get their heads around it or say that they need time to get their heads around it versus someone who, I'll admit, I haven't always been this way, but if you present me with facts that change the narrative I have grown up knowing or change the narrative that I think I know of this, I'm going to adjust my view because I would rather learn and correct myself than to hold on to a stance that's just wrong. And that hasn't worked with my parents exactly. And I'm not sure if they've fully understood that. I know my mom's parents, the amount of times I have heard love the sinner, hate the sin, and um, that's not how I was raised. That's not my beliefs and all this. And it just doesn't mesh with me that holding on to your beliefs over loving the person who is in your life and you're supposed to care about, your child, your grandchild, because what's more important, your beliefs or the family you have? And I can understand the mentality if you hold on to family despite it all, but that also means your family has to hold on to you and be willing to listen and understand you. Because if they can't, then the only right thing to do is to walk away from them.
Yeah, and it sounds like it's been a really difficult, I guess, a real difficult transition for still that lack of understanding with what, like how you're saying with your aunt and your grandparents is within saying that, like hate the sinner, I mean hate the sin, not the sinner. And like I said, going back to kind of like that generalized hypocrisy of how we like to put the understanding of, I guess, the generalized beliefs into this box, and if it goes outside this box, it's nothing that I believe in. But
Yeah.
but yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense in that way how you put it, that with family in itself, it's, and especially in age groups, well, like age groups and age gaps, it's like it's a little bit more difficult for them to understand that transition. But maybe in the same way that, because they're not going through it, and that notion of understanding of who you were is kind of lost to them now. Not disappeared, but just kind of lost. And it brings me to another question with that. I don't think I asked this. Do you have siblings, or are you an only child?
I actually do have a brother. He just recently got married again. Both of us have been in a marriage, been divorced. His first marriage was to um someone who actually wound up being trans as well. I believe a trans man. I have not kept in touch with them, so I'm not going to definitively say who and what they are. Um, he has three kids now. Two from the first marriage and a stepchild through the second. So, his child, just a very special sort of his child. Trying to find a good way to put that, but that's about probably the best way I can put it. Because once you have kids, especially if you marry and then you get a kid through that marriage, you understand that, yeah, this is my kid, absolutely my child. Which is where I'm at as well. So my brother, sorry, tangents. My brother, he is in the army. He is a cis male. Um, and he's holding a proud Burns tradition because we're both fourth generation military. Our father, his father, and his father were all army. I am I am the rogue in the family since my brother went army because I'm the one who decided I wanted to go on the sea instead. Um, and he and I don't really talk a lot. I say not a lot. We don't get along. Uh, I'm not sure what happened. I have no doubt it was completely on me that I have completely fucked up the relationship, and I just don't know what I did. I wish he'd talk to me about it. I wish I could correct it because I do miss having my brother in my life.
No, I believe that. I believe that that it really sounds like a very difficult thing. And which I guess just kind of to go back a little bit to you being a rogue, like, and I don't want to make this sound very comedic, but I think there's a joke in there about you joining the Navy and then eventually being trans, but I'll leave it at that.
Oh no, no, no! It gets even better than that because as it turns out, I have kind of I tried figuring out as far as my orientation, but no, it's very much the fact of join the military, and I'm not really all that attracted to men. So since I couldn't be attracted to men, I had to find another way to be gay.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, man, and it's funny. I bring it up because one of my best friends here in Virginia, where I'm actually still stationed at. So actually, I'm still stationed out here, and actually met him at the command where I'm currently at. Like this dude is gay. He's married, and it's just like it's a lot of back and forth, and it's just like it's just like it just makes it's just funny because I understand how you're explaining things in that sense, and then having the conversations with him about how his sexual orientation and stuff, and like that's just one of those things. And it's just like I said, I didn't want to make a super, I guess, about the biggest joke about it because, but it's
oh no, that's
it's
the thing.
entertaining.
I love the gay Navy jokes. Actually, what was it? There was somebody I worked with at Lowe's. God, this was back in 2017, 2018. But when I met her, she was married to a guy. She was actually from Minnesota. And all this. Turns out she was a lesbian too. And I'm just sitting here going, damn, is everyone who joins the Navy turns out they're gay? Or
I
at
guess
least bi?
it's something. I don't know. I think it's something in the water, It's just like, I guess the Virginia Beach saying, it's something in the water. I don't know. No, but it's funny. It's just always entertaining hearing that. And it's just like, man, there's a joke in there somewhere. Like, I just don't know where to find it, but
Hey, I mean, the jokes are the best part.
Oh yeah, definitely, man. So, well, I guess even then, keeping it a little bit a little bit in light with that. So, you joined the military. You go through that whole time frame. Were you? I can't remember. Were you a reservist or were you active duty for those 8 years?
I was reservist. I was actually married to active duty, so
Mm.
it was a whole thing of sure. I'm only technically working 2 weeks a month or 2 days a month, 2 weeks out of the year. That was never the case because when she was on duty, I was on duty. When she was dealing with stuff at the command, I was dealing with stuff at the command because the command knew me.
Mm-hmm.
The command knew me well because hey, if you've got one of your folks at the command married to a reservist, that means you now have somebody who you can just drag in on call. Because what do they have back other than serve the command? So technically reserves. What it meant was I had two full-time jobs because I'd be working my full-time job plus I would have to make sure to keep up with the command. A lot of times for exercises in our in the eventual not division. Fuck I can't even remember what it's called. My brain is not working, but the reserve group I was in because I wound up in CNFJ, Command Naval Commander Naval Forces Japan
Mm.
HQ. So when a lot of times exercises would come up, I'd be the one who, hey, Burns knows how to work these systems because Burns literally knows everyone at the command and has dealt with these systems the most. Oh boy, the number of times when I was having to make sure that people's stuff was taken care of in inrows and fucking was it NTC, the Navy travel system or military travel? How it is you try to get on your orders when they're off of. I was I spent so much time working my full time job, and then at the time, especially that I remember that I was working security, so I was working my job in a guard shack on call with the folks who are about to go on an exercise, making sure, hey, have you got this taken care of? Have you gotten this taken care of? What do you need me to help you with? I only got paid for one of them. It pissed me off.
Man, that's fucking horrible right there. That sucks.
That's the Navy way, though. You
Yeah.
you work your ass off, and you're busy looking at the end and going, "Damn, I ain't get paid." I never. I think only 3 times I ever got a review that did not have an EP on it, and that was because first time was I had just joined that division group. I can never remember unit. There we go. I had just joined that unit right before review, so they did not know me at the time. They didn't have enough to go off of. Second time, it was a must promote, and that was because I had just joined um, uh, CNFJ. And once again, they knew I was good, but they were pretty much just like, okay, we need to promote her. Obviously, not the pronouns at the time, but we need to promote her, but we don't know her well enough to say that we need to early promote her. And then once again, when I came back to South Carolina, and the unit down here, we need to promote her, must promote, but we're not there for early promote yet. And I didn't really, by the time reviews would have come out again here, I had basically already said I'm gone because it was so much worse here. It was bad because that was about the time the Black Lives Matter protests were going on, and hearing the command and the folks just talking about um, how folks should be doing things, and that's not the appropriate way. And I was just sitting there going, so what is the appropriate way? What are people supposed to do when their voices aren't heard and they're having to fear for their lives from police? And that was back when I was still very conservative in my beliefs at that point, and I was just sitting there going, if I'm this conservative and I get it, I can't be here.
Yeah, that's a huge shift, especially with that. Like speaking on how you're saying with during the Black Lives Matter movement and the what do you call it, the peaceful protests, and then what eventually turned violent because, but not out of malice, just literally out of retaliation for, like you said, how are people supposed to do it if this isn't the right way?
Yeah.
And then just touching back a little bit on your reserve times, like it's funny, like it doesn't matter how it is. Like if you're in the military, you're in the military one way, and then it's just always that same narrative. We'll get you on the back end. We'll get you on the back end, and they never do. So,
Oh yeah.
yeah, that's just entertaining. It's always funny to hear like that. It's like I don't believe in the back end. It's either upfront or not at all. So
Oh yeah. Well, and especially being LS, because I got put in that billet because it was, hey, we need folks in LS. E3, E4s. They needed folks to fill in those spaces. But once you got to E4, you were not getting advanced. Like there was a maybe a point 0.3, 0.4% advancement rate, if I remember correctly. Like you had to score top. And even then, and LS is so full of fucking codes and forms and things that I just said nope. I if I had cross rated, maybe I would have tried sticking with it a little longer, but there wasn't really anything I was going to be able to cross rate to.
yeah, no, it's difficult, and don't get me wrong, it still is kind of like that. Like out of my own volition, I tried super hard to not make E6 because I came in on Des and I cross rated into YN into Yeoman, but out of like decision making and everything, I tried not to make E6 because trying to put in a package for special programs and stuff, and like the Navy doesn't love you if you're too old. The Navy doesn't love you if you've been in a job for too long. So so like I said, I believe you. I believe you taking that big L, taking that need to be like, hey, you know what, fuck this. It's going to be either my career or my own decision on how I make it. So I believe you on that. And it really does sound in the exact same way that it's not only just been your career, but your life in general in the both transitions. In both transitions, but going from how the military was going to treat you, how they treated you, how life was going for you and how it was treating you. And then finally, like that acceptance into how you currently are right now in your life. So we touched a lot we touched a little bit on your history in general and a lot of the transitions that happened with you going into the community of trans, queer, LGBTQ plus. So we're sitting now in 2025 and you've made a lot of changes to your life and things have happened. What are the other things that you're doing? Because I definitely know for sure from how we've been kind of tracking things going on in Facebook. I know you're an advocate. I know you're definitely a protester. It's like, what have you seen in your, I guess, putting yourself out there to be able to speak on behalf of both the communities and people being oppressed that just kind of should be brought a little bit more attention to?
Well, I can't say I'm a protester. I haven't gone to any protests, which a lot of that is because I have a lot of rage about things. And I know I'm not what you want at a protest. You want people who can speak and, can follow the rules, basically. I'm very much the sort where, what was it, Seattle, Washington, queer community, there was some far right protesters, and we all know what far right protesters really are, fascists, who had come into the community and started protesting. And apparently, the queer folks there decided to just come out and counter protest about it, and then wound up getting arrested by cops. And I made a comment on the video about that TikTok um, that if the cops are going to arrest you anyway for just standing there and peacefully protesting against folks coming into your community and protesting your existence, just start beating the shit out of the protesters who came into your community. It's very much a whole thing of if they come into your space and say that you don't deserve to exist, you don't play nice with them. You don't try to hold on to that civility politics, the politeness politics. You beat their asses down, and then the cops might have a reason to arrest you, sure. But you have just made a point to them that this is not you're not safe to come into our place and tell us we don't belong. And that's that sort of mentality that I have of you need to beat down on fascists, you need to beat down on Yahtzees, Nazis, very used to TikTok language. It's not wrong. I am never going to say I'm wrong, but I know that it's not what needs to happen at peaceful protests. You don't need people at peaceful protests like me who are angry. I'm more of the see a protest of these sorts going on, just come up to them and start beating the hell out of them, because that's what I know is the correct response. You don't win against Nazis by trying to use logic and reason. They have given up on that. You win against them by just making them feel afraid that if they speak, they're going to be reminded what where Nazis belong, in the fucking dirt. Um, so, but I have definitely tried to advocate. I have tried to advocate for every community I can. People of color, indigenous community, queer community. That being said, I have always made sure that, hey, I am white and I am queer. Those are that's where I fit in. My marginalization is queer. Yes, I pass. I pass as a cis woman, and I hate to use the term pass, but I have the privilege of not being clocked as trans. Am I goth as hell? Absolutely. That's a whole other thing that isn't going to actually affect my life too much aside from getting stares, and that's usually just a quick, well, if you're gonna stare, take a picture. You know, tell them to fuck off. Um, but I am very white, and I know this, and it means I have to be the one to listen. If I hear a person of color, indigenous, black, if I hear someone who has had to face the worst of human history thanks to my colonial ancestors speaking, my job is not to speak over them or even speak for them. My job is to say, hey, here's what they're saying. Here's them speaking, listen to them. No, and if I need to speak, because I had made a video, I'm not sure if you saw it, where I was basically saying, hey, I should not have to say this, but with Jonathan Joss having just been just having his life taken, we need to start fighting back. I don't need to be the one to speak. I'm white. White people have been talking. It's time for us to shut the fuck up and let people whose voices actually matter be at the forefront. And that's what I've been trying to do, at least on that side. Beyond that in my life, God. So when I originally went to college back in 2012 to 2013, I studied criminal justice. I turned that into a security job later on. Something I still probably am going to have to use because got to make work somehow. And it might basically be, just below being a cop on the bastard scale. But let's be honest here. When have I ever given much of a shit about following the rules? I am also currently a voice actor. I am voice acting for Valmont, the Black Raven Chronicles, a wonderful little audio drama that is a supernatural noir detective thriller. We have 6 episodes out. I am also a voice actor for Sia Melange. I'm not sure if you've heard of her on TikTok.
I don't think so.
Does the Cafe Latte series.
No, I kind of been steering. I'm not steering away. I really don't delve too much into TikTok just because it's to not me not as accessible. It's a black hole of like I get sucked into a lot of things, but I use it more for kind of like the what do you call it, professional videos for the podcast itself as under my IE Productions channel.
Oh no, that makes perfect sense. I understand that. So her series tends to just be what was it? There was I think it was a Reddit prompt or maybe a Tumblr prompt. Do not ask me about websites. I am not that smart. Talking about what if fairies ran a cafe? How would that look with fair trade and the rules of Fae? And she just took it and ran with it. She's actually got a book coming out soon regarding that. And I mostly just do creature voices when necessary. Though technically I work for her video editor, Nick. So got that. I've got a wedding that I need to figure things out for with my wonderful wife in England. And life has just been weird.
No, I believe it, and it's like I said, it's one of those things that I was mentioning with when I reached out on Messenger, especially as like it's been a while. Like I said, like I keep tabs on a lot of the people that we went to boot camp with, and a lot of the people that I've served with along the line that like have made an impression. And like I said, for you, it's like it's one of those things where like I keep seeing a lot of those things with everybody. with everybody, and I would love to literally interview everybody that we've been together with in like a one way or another, but it's difficult. It's difficult to reach
Yeah.
out because, like I said, I get people have lives and everything. It's like, so one, I really appreciate that you accepted the invitation on such short notice, especially as we're kind of closing in like near the end of the month for what do you call it, for Pride Month, but also just because, like I said, it's one of those situations where it's like, hey, I know somebody that went through that transition to come in and tell their story about how that's been, and like I want to share that, like I said, as that platform to be able to like imply, hey, everybody is different in their own way, and these people served in the military as well. They served this country that we're defending. They gave a portion of their time to be able to what do you call it, to be able to put that in the forefront, the definition of the free rights and advocating for our people. And then now that they're not here, they're still acting to that accord to be able to defend the people in one way or another. So yeah, but that was actually going to be my end of following up questions, like what else have you been doing? But no, it looks and it sounds like you're actually super busy. You're making a whole bunch of what do you call it? You're involved in a whole bunch of projects, and you're making a lot of strides in your personal achievements. One thing that I do want to ask about that is like with the Black Raven Chronicles is like, you're on Spotify, you're on YouTube, you guys have do that. I will definitely take a listen to it because it sounds like I got into D&D in like 2015, like 2017, and I ran a couple campaigns. I've been in a couple campaigns, so like I love listening to audiobooks and then listening to like some what do you call it, especially like fantastical radio dramas like that. So
and we're on Spotify. I believe we're on most podcasting sites, as well as obviously we have things being uploaded to YouTube because honestly YouTube is sometimes easier for folks. Trying to think. Yeah, we've got that going on. We're actually working on a book for season 1, basically being compiled and giving prose for those who would want to read it. Most likely I wind up narrating it because I think I'm don't get me wrong. Either I'll narrate it or more possibly just as likely will be Corey Bishop or voice for Offreg Valmont, the main character. Will wind up narrating it if we can afford him at the time, because we right now our entire production is on a $0 budget. The boss, Jonathan Phoenix, who writes it and is the director of it, he is keeping the websites up that need to be kept up. He is taking care of all this with his own money, and we're not making really much of anything out of the products that we have or off of Patreon. So it is not even a shoestring budget. We are pumping our money into it, and we are not seeing anything out of it. But we're doing it for the love of the project. And even the shirt I'm wearing. Let me see if I can get this. So this shirt I'm wearing is actually from the from the universe. It's the Wolves Den bar, the waitress's tank top. And this design on it is actually my own design. So we put our effort and our souls and our own funds into it, and we're just hoping that we can make something that people enjoy and brings people what's what I'm looking for? Brings people this sense of peace, something to enjoy. Because let's be honest here, the world's going to shit, and sometimes you just need that little thing to help you get through it. Because I know I've had to take a lot of breaks from TikTok and social media where I'm just like, okay, I know this is an important issue. I understand that what's going on with Gaza and is not real is bad. I understand everything going on with ICE in the area is bad. Not just obviously not just what we've seen everywhere, but apparently now ICE or an adjacent industry is happening near me, and I didn't even know about it until a post a friend did. And it's just, it is a lot, and it will drown you if you don't give yourself some room to refresh and breathe. Because, what is it? You can only fight for so long before you burn yourself out. Don't burn yourself out. Is it worth it for the fight to put all you have in? Yes, but if all you're doing is going to burn yourself out, you're not going to stay in the fight as long. You're eventually going to crash out, and you're not going to be able to help anybody, not even yourself.
Yeah, no, it's very true. It's that's a good way to put it, and what do you call it? And to make sense of it, it's not. It's like you can only be in there so long before it kind of starts kind of dragging you down in a psychological way, and that's a good way to put it too. You gotta be able to be ready to be able to fight for another day, and to be able to assist where you can after the fact. But no, I mean, it sounds like you guys have a whole bunch of projects going in and everything. But I think we've answered pretty much most of the questions I got, most of the catching up partial that I wanted to ask. But I'll ask a couple other things off record once we stop recording. But what do you think? I mean, I think this is a pretty good point to start. If you have any of the questions or concerns you want to ask about.
No other really questions or concerns to ask about. I do want to. So you said you went yeoman. You're still yeoman.
Yep, still a
I'm
yeoman.
guessing YN1.
Yep.
My condolences.
Uh,
How was Meridian?
I never went to Meridian. No.
Oh, okay. So that you just had to get the training materials and cross rate yourself, basically.
Yep. I went, like I said, I came in on Des. I showed up to the ship was about a year or almost 2 years on Des. So I was there with the boatswains and chipping paint, driving the ship and all that. And then finally they're like, hey, pick a rate. Chose yeoman, and then literally been yeoman, I think 11, 10 years, somewhere around there. So yeah, I never went. So it's like everybody who tells me that they went to Meridian and they tell me, it's like, yeah, how was Meridian for you? I was like, I never went. Like, I stayed in Great Lakes. I literally went across the street, was over there for a month, and then they shipped me off to Norfolk, Virginia for my first command. So it's like, yeah.
I mean, that does make a lot of sense. And honestly, you're not missing anything by not going to Meridian. There was there was jack fucking shit.
I heard. I heard.
But no, only other thing I want to kind of mention for your listeners is I do run a Discord server, the Empire of Monsters. It is a place for those who don't really fit into the majority of society, who don't fit in polite society, as I would normally put it. If you're queer, especially because it is very much focused as a queer first server. I will fully admit that. And unfortunately, a lot of the folks there are very white. Not saying it's all white folks, but there's a very obvious presence of, hey, this is a predominantly white group. That is not saying don't come in if you are someone of color. That means please come in. We want differing perspectives and opinions. We want folks who can call us out when we're saying something that we don't realize is wrong. We want to grow and learn and heal, which is part of it. And then if you're not human, come on in. That's a whole other thing. But yeah, no, definitely. I'll have a link. I'll give you a link, Jonathan, for that. For anyone who wants to come in, we do make sure to vet everyone. It is very much an 18 and up server because, don't want to risk anything bad, and we don't tolerate any sort of hate or bigotry. And I especially don't tolerate anybody even starting to fanboy J.K. Rowling with all the bullshit she has pulled. So leave the Harry Potter behind. It is not welcome here. It is not wanted there.
Gotcha. No, yeah, I'll definitely, once you send me those links, I'll definitely post them up on the description for the YouTube video for the Discord server, so people can actually go in there and find an extra community. Because there's like, especially with a lot of the things that's happening, like even coming into in person is a little difficult to be able to reach back out to communities. But same thing, like an open space and a safe space to be able to talk, and maybe somebody else might have questions. And then same thing with the Black Raven Chronicles as another listen for people to just kind of disconnect from everything that's kind of going on in the world. And I'll definitely do that for sure.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Well, Jacqueline, again, thank you very much for accepting the invitation and letting me interview for this, the Enigma sessions, for the ESL sessions for the Enigma segment. And outside of that, thank you. Thank you for what you've done so far as a service member, like I said, from service member to service member, unironically, thank you for your service, and thank you for being for being what do you call it, available to be able to open to the community with your Discord server, and then providing the stories. So we'll go ahead, we'll close it off right here at the ESL sessions on this another Enigma episode, and we'll go ahead and call it a day. Have a good one.